Good morning, Rabbi Isai. How's everybody doing? Today's shir is being sponsored by Chaim and Alison Rosenberg. May we see Yeshuos, Refuos, for Klal Yisrael, V'vias Goyel Tzedek B'Korev Mamish, Amen. Sponsored by Sruli Bernstein, in honor of his great aunt's yahrzeit. I thought it was very interesting. I got a call yesterday from Sruli Bornstein. I don't think it's the same person. I forgot to ask him. It's not him. It's Bernstein, not Bornstein. In honor of his great aunt's yahrzeit, Freda Rezel Bas Avram Yitzchok. The neshama should have an aliyah. Refuah Shlema for Yerachmiel ben Rochel Leah, who is the beloved rabbi of the MMAE Shul that houses mitzvah motivators and officials' wonderful headquarters, and the home of the MDY Baltimore Siyum on Shabbos. So way to go. We have the official home of the MDY Baltimore Siyum on Shabbos. This is from Official Catering. Official from Official Catering is no longer sponsoring the turning of the daf. Today we have we're going to unveil the new turning of the daf sponsor. Every morning when you get on Zoom, if you come on early, you're going to hear one or two voices, actually three. You usually hear Yoel Bergman. He's the one in charge from Chicago, teenager from Chicago. And Avi Mandelbaum. I just want to read this out. Some people, who's this colorful character from Moreshet? Avi Mandelbaum. So this is a beautiful thing that he once wrote to me, and I forgot to read it. I love this. It says, "Good afternoon, Eli and crew. The reason why I call him a colorful character is because his background is always very colorful. He has different backgrounds every day, different themes per the week, a whole Meisen Geschäft. He writes like this: I work for a pharmacy in New Jersey, www.schrafts2.com. Basically, it works from Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. Israel time. Because of this, I often don't get to sleep until 2 or 3 a.m. And in January, February, sometimes at 5 a.m. And he gets up every single morning at 6:50 a.m. to learn with you. And then this is followed by davening, breakfast, and sleep. So I really commend this. Somebody who gets up and goes back to sleep. He goes to sleep really, really late, sleeps for like 2-3 hours, gets up for shir, and goes back to sleep. Very unique, and it's a tremendous thing. So don't just and listen. It takes time to put those backgrounds up. It's a whole thing. Now he says in pre-Corona he didn't wake up for shir, so basically Corona has actually helped me. Thank you again for all that you've done and continue to do for me. I hope this email was short enough. See you in the morning, Avi Mandelbaum. That was probably from a month ago. Yeah, July 1st. All right, sorry, it takes time sometimes. This is from, listen to this, Shmuel Eliezer Lampner. Shalom Aleichem Reli. It's nice to see you and I enjoy watching Yeshiva. I'm working Yeshiva to grow stronger and davening I can get up, keep up, and get steady with the Daf Yomi Yeshir. Thanks for bringing Geschmack to learning. Bracha v'atzlacha, Shmuel Eliezer Lampner. Now, I've heard from a number of people, since there's so many Bachrim out there that don't have yeshivas and they can't get to Eretz Yisrael and Corona, and a lot of people are having chalishus in Torah. Maybe they should start joining the Daf Yomi. I know in yeshiva they're anti-Daf Yomi, I get it. So it's a great opportunity to do something against what the yeshiva says. It's always geschmack to do, be rebellious. Get into some learning. What's the difference? You're not learning it anyway. You're not doing your Eon, you might as well do Bekiyas. I'm not saying this is the way to learn. Chas v'shalom, you got to learn Be'eon. But it's better than just playing video games all day and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, movie after movie. Might as well learn some daf. Get into the daf for boys' side. It's good for yeshiva bachim too. We have time for one more. This is from Avram Crystal. Thank you so much for the wonderful daf yom yeshir that you give b'kol yom v'yom. May you be zoichet to continue to give shiurim ad be as good as tzedek b'meheri b'yom meinu. Avram Menachem Crystal. Shkoyach. Okay. Rabbi Isai. There's a few glitches in our amazing list. And I want to tell you about this list. Tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem, will all be ironed out and we'll have a perfect list. We are pushing, I think it's close to 80 different locations. It's unreal. And I say that if, I know Noam and others, know, especially Noam, was working on this amazing Shabbos, whether it was a Shabbos in a hotel and get everybody together, or it was a Shabbos locally and do major meals, because it's Masechta Shabbos, you want to do something special for Shabbos. And I say that if Corona disappeared today, and we got a free hotel somewhere up north, I would much rather have the scene that we're about to have 80 locations worldwide, and to have that camaraderie, to have that achdus, and everybody together. To me, it's unbelievable. What we thought was a b'di'evet kind of Zoom, I think it's going to work out to be an amazing thing, a one of a kind, definitely the first of its, that everybody's mishtatif like that. People are going to be speaking from all over the world and joining, and it's unbelievable. And I just want to highlight one place. And Rabbi said, don't get up from wherever you are and travel over there, and don't try to imitate them. There's only one New York Borough Park Flatbush Chevra in the world. We'll never be like them. We don't want to. We can't. It's just something to look up to and admire. So they already have a menu. They already have a party planner. Well, they have an in-house photographer, Yisrael Goldstein. They're inviting women and children. Trust me, whatever. We want to see what they have over there. Hope they have more than one camera taking all the angles. That's New York. All right. But anyway, we should look up to that and try to. So if you were planning on getting pizza and beer, there's other musagim you have to understand about. It's called New York. All right. Eli Stefansky is shepping nachas, I see. Today is Daf Kuf Mem Gimel, and we are holding by Abaye Monach Kappa Akipe. It's 7 lines from the bottom. So we just finished saying that Mar Zutra holds that we're talking about carrying different things with an excuse, with a sort of a trick. So you have a lot of money left outside in Rosh Hashanah, you have an iPhone that you forgot somewhere, so you put your baby on top of it, you put something that's not muktza on top of it, then the iPhone becomes a base to the non-muktza, and we allow you to carry it in. It says Mar Zutra, that's only if you forgot your iPhone, not if you put it there deliberately before Shabbos. You completely forgot about it. And then comes around Rav Ashi and says this is only for a mace, for a dead person, because of kavod habriya, human dignity. And then we brought the Mishnah Brura that it has he's talking about a muktza that's a severe muktza, like muktza machmas gufay, so stones, that sort of thing, and a mace. But when it comes to klisha malachta le'isr, the Mishnah Brura says you're allowed, if there's a great loss, you're allowed to use this excuse. Says the Gemara, Abaya monach kappa akipe. Abaya would take a spoon and put it atop of a bushel of hay, let's say, so they can move the hay around on Shabbos. You say the hay is just a base to the spoon. I'm trying to carry the spoon. Rava monach sakina abar yoina umetaldala. And Rava would do the same trick. You take a knife, put it on top of raw pigeon meat, dove meat, and it's raw. So it's muktza. And he would move the knife saying, oh, the meat is my base for my knife. Omer Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef didn't like this. Kama charifa shmaitz the dardike. Oh, it's so sharp. These youngsters are coming up with such sharp ideas. This halal is if you forget about it. You forgot your meat somewhere. You forgot your hay bushel. You're going to go ahead and start moving around raw meat with a knife. Says the Gemara, Rav Yosef didn't understand what's going on here. In other words, Rav Yosef is right. Rav Yosef has a great point. You can't just go ahead and start moving things around, muktza on Shabbos, and putting non-muktza on top of it and start moving your muktza around. That doesn't work. So why did Abaye do it? Because Abaye held I don't need a knife at all. You don't need a knife. It's a hay bushel, it's a chair. In those days I could use it as a chair, some hay. So then why did I put a knife? To show people, look, I'm an important person. My name is Abaye. I'm I'm careful with what I do. I put a knife. You also be careful. Don't just take heter and start moving muktza around. You could sit on it. Omar Rava, no. Same thing. I don't need a knife on top of the dove chicken. The dove meat. I could use the meat as is. I could eat it. It's not muktza at all. People could eat it when it's raw. People eat it soft meat. You could eat it. So therefore, I went ahead and I did a little bit of a chumrah. I put a knife on it to show people, look, don't learn examples from me. Don't say, oh, he's moving muktza. I move muktza with a knife. So now next time muktza comes along, you're not going to say, oh, Rava did it. Rava did it with a knife. Okay. Says the Gemara, time of the chazi lumtza. So it's because Rava said that this dove meat is, you could eat it raw. Now at the end of the day, why does Rava have to say, pigeon meat is edible as is? You know what he should say? Pigeon meat is edible for an animal, for a cat. Give it to any cat in the street. You see a stray cat, give it to him. It's not muktza. If I could feed a cat, it's not muktza. The reason is because he holds that even though you could feed a cat, it is muktza. Who holds that? L'meimer de Rava Rabbi Yehuda Svirlei. Right? You have another machlokes between Reb Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. If something turns into animal food over Shabbos, is it muktza or not? Is it noilad? Reb Shimon holds it's not muktza. There's no noilad. Rabbi Yehuda holds it is. So that's why Rava couldn't say, hey, I'm going to take my pigeon and give it to my cat, or a cat. Because Rava holds like Rabbi Yehuda that it's muktza. You can't just pick it up and give it to a cat. It's muktza. It's called noilad, it's muktza. But the problem is, Rava told his helper, Tavili bar Abza. It was on Yantif. He says, go cook me a duck. That's what probably the New Yorkers are going to have in their siyum. They're going to have duck, they're going to have lamb, they're going to have, 18-course meal over there. So get me some duck. Yeah, top of the line, on Yantif food, give me a duck. Ushadim meya l'shunra. And take the intestines and give it to the cat. Now, how could the shamish grab the intestines on Yantif and give it to a cat? It's muktza. You just said it's muktza. Now, why is it muktza? So Rashi explains beautifully. And this fits in right with the New Yorkers. On Yantif, nobody eats intestines. On Tuesday, they'll eat intestines. They'll eat some kishka. But not in Yantif. Yantif, you have so much food. It's so beautiful. The intestines become nothing. They're not royal la'achila sadam. I'm not serving it, so it's not for humans. If it's not for humans, who is it for? It's for the cat. Give it to the cat. Oh, so then it's noilad. It just went from human consumption to cat consumption, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, this is muktza. So why did Rava tell his shamish, go take this muktza and give it to your cat? Says the Gemara, Daf Kuf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. Hasam kivin the master daita elevei me'atmoil. Rava knew before Yontif that he's going to make a duck, and that the kishka is going to get spoiled in the heat, and therefore he already had in mind to give it to the cat, and Mamela it's not muktza. It's not noilad. It's already designated for the cat before Yontif. And this makes a lot of sense. The Darash Rava, a woman should not walk into the room where you keep your firewood to grab a long stick to stoke the coals. Why? Because wood is muktza. Wood is for fuel. You can't just grab wood. So if you're going to use it for fuel, not muktza, but if you're going to use it for something else, it's muktza. Now, v'ud shenishbar, this stoker, if it breaks in half, also la'asika b'yantav. You can't just say, oh, I have a broken stoker or a poker. What am I going to do with it? Oh, I'll throw it into the oven. I'll use it as fuel. You can't use it as fuel. Why? Levishim asikin b'kelim. If you want to throw a nice dish, a nice bowl, a wooden bowl into the flame, great. Who holds this? We had this sugya, Rabbi Yehuda. So in other words, you see from here that Rava holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Because according to Rabbi Shimon, if my stoker breaks in half, I could use it for fuel. So the fact that he says that you can't use it, you see he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. And if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, you shouldn't be able to give the kishkis to the cat. And the only reason why I give kishkis to the cat is because I already designated in my mind before Yontiv that I'm going to give it to the cat, and therefore it's not muktza. Says the Mishnah. This is something that we could use every Shabbos. You have leftover food on the Shabbos table. You're allowed to move it, you're not allowed to move it. Say Shammai, I can move bones off the table, even though they are not roi la'achilas kelev. They're too tough. They're bones that are not good. Uklipin and any kind of peel that's not roi for anything. Tais is mechulek Rashi and says they are roi because even Reb Shimon will hold in such a situation that they're muktza if even a dog can't eat it. Ubesil loimrim misalik is a tavla kula uminara. So Beis Shammai don't hold of muktza, as the Mishnah is saying it now, and Beisil hold of muktza, and they say you shouldn't go ahead and touch the leftover food, the muktza. You just pick up the whole table. You pick it, you take off the flat surface off the legs, and you shake it off. As you can see, the bones are falling off everywhere. Great. Uminara. Says the Mishnah Ma'avirin. Now, what about today? We have a tablecloth. So the Mishnah rule talks about it. Our tablecloth is similar to this piece of wood that you take off. So, how would you think if you take, if you go to these fancy restaurants, they have like these sharp blades. It's like a half a circle, like a half a pipe, and they clear off your crumbs off the table. And shallots, Rabbi says shallots in Chicago, claim to fame of Chicago. Is that okay on Shabbos or not? The question is that considered tiltul minatzad? I'm not touching the leftovers, the garbage on the table. I'm doing it with a kli. Is that okay? So from the Mishnah Berurah, it seems that it's okay. The Chazon Ish says that's not tiltul minatzad. It's just an extension of your hand. It's a very interesting shayla. Using a kli with your hand, is that considered tiltul minatzad or not? The bottom line is that if it's a graf sharei, then we're going to see this halacha, and we had it many times before. Graf sharei, the portable toilet, disgusting stuff, a dead mouse. I'm allowed to get rid of it on Shabbos. So if you have stuff on your table, leftover food, people are grossed out from it, you're allowed to get it off the table. That's the bottom line. There's no isser, there's no muktza on that. It's muktza, but they made a dispensation. They said, go ahead, clear it off. Says the Mishnah, Ma'avirim lefnei hashulchan perurim poches mekizayis. The Gemara is going to discuss, Ma'avirim is a nice language. Not throw it, you move it nicely off the table. We're talking about crumbs. A lot of people are very careful with crumbs. It's a sign of wealth. If you're not careful with them, chas v'shalom, whatever. So the Mishnah, they could be medayik in the Mishnah. Ma'avirim lefnei hashulchan perurim poches mekizayis. If they're small crumbs, you're allowed to get rid of them. V'seir shalafunim, and a pea pod. In other words, you have a vegetable, it's not muktza, but once you open up the vegetable, you take out the food part, now the peel becomes muktza. V'seir adoshim, and a lentil pod. Mipnei shumacha behema, why can I move it? Because it's animal food. Sfaig, a sponge. Im yesh lebeis achiza. So here's a sponge. And here's the beis achiza. It has a handle. Now, I found this very interesting. That when the Mechaber talks about a sponge, he brings in parentheses. He says, from the Aruch, lived 1,000 whatever years ago. He says, what is a sponge? A sponge, he says, there's a giant whale in the ocean that Akash Baruch Hu made a nace. Every time he comes out of the water, a sponge covers his eyes so he cannot see. Had he not had that sponge, he would destroy every ship in the ocean. You wouldn't be able to travel the ocean. That's what he says. If you want to know what a sponge is, that's what it is. Bikan chamboy. So the sponge absorbs water. So if it has a handle, then I could use it. If it doesn't have, let's talk about if it doesn't have a handle. Doesn't have a handle, you're going to touch it, you're going to squeeze it, you're going to be over right away. If it has a handle, I can use it. Use it for what? With water, without water. Says Rashi, with water, very gently. Okay. Mekanchim boy, vimlav ein mekanchim boy. Now, the Ravid, very interesting. The Ravid says that I could use it with water, not gently. Why? Because we're holding at the end of the Mishnah, right before the end of the Mishnah. Why not gently? So it says the Ravid, a big chidush, and the Chazon Ish explains it nicely, that the Ravid holds that if it has a handle, then you're talking about like a bottle of water. Water goes in, water goes out. The Chazon Ish says an example, for instance, a door on your house. How come every time you shut the door, you're not boina, you're building a house? Because it's meant to go open and close, open, close. So if I have a handle to my sponge, I'm showing I want water in, I want water out. I'm going to use it all day long. It's different than your clothing getting absorbed with water, and you go like this and you wring it out and water comes out. That's soichet. But if it has a handle, it's meant to go in and out, and therefore the Ravid holds you don't have to be careful. Rashi obviously argues and he says, I don't care if it's meant to go in, this is soichet, that's why be very gentle with it. So, either way, whether it has a handle, doesn't have a handle, it's not muktza. Well, most learn that it is a muktza, but nito means I can move something that's muktza l'tzarech gufay l'tzarech mekaymai. It's a klisha malach l'isser. If you touch it, it's going to do something aser. You're going to wring it out. So therefore, it's a klisha malach l'isser, and the halacha is klisha malach l'isser is mutter to move when I need its spot, or when I need to do something. I need to use this sponge for whatever the reason is, to cool myself off. Whatever it is, then I can move it. That's how most Rishonim learn. Some learn no. It means you can just move it. Nidl b'Shabbos ve'eina mikabel tuma. Why is the sponge not mikabel tuma? So if you look in Rashi, the last Rashi in the Mishnah, it says ve'eina mikabel tuma. The einoi loy kliates. There are 4 categories, and this doesn't fit in. This sponge that comes off the eye of a whale or whatever you make a sponge from, likely ate, it's not wood, v'loy beged, it's not clothing, v'loy sack, and it's not a sack, v'loy mateches, it's not metal. It's its own material, that's not mekabel tuma. Omer Rav Nachman says the Gemara, Omer Rav Nachman, Anu, ein lano lebishama ki Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Nachman wants to do a switcheroo on the whole Mishnah, and just switch the names. The one who doesn't hold of muktza, the one who holds like Reb Shimon, and we always pass like Reb Shimon, it almost makes sense. Beis Hillel are going to go like Reb Shimon, no muktza. And Beis Shammai are going to go like Reb Yehuda, who we don't pass like, and we don't pass like Beis Shammai. So that makes more sense. L'chayra. Amar Rav Nachman, but that's the end of the sugya. I'm going to switch it around. That Beis Hillel hold, you're allowed to just grab anything off your table and put in the garbage. And Beis Shammai are the ones that say you got to be careful and shake out your tablecloth, take your table and move it to the side. So the Mishnah said, Ma'avirin, the crumbs, the small crumbs that are less than a kazayis, Ma'avirin l'fnei hashulchan perurim, and Rashi points out, Ma'avirin means nicely, ba'adinut, like they say in Hebrew. There's a big discussion in the Rishonim. It seems like Rashi contradicts himself, because in Brachas he says differently, but we're going to learn perurim she'em b'em kazayis asur la'abdam bayad. It's asur to destroy crumbs. That's why the Mishnah says, do it nicely, treat them with respect, the crumbs. In Brachas, Rabbi Yochanan says, you're allowed to destroy crumbs, but the bottom line would be, you could destroy them, but nicely. Be careful how you destroy them. So I'm thinking now out loud, I don't know if this is a good mashal, but let's say your tzitzis rip. So you throw them in the garbage, but nicely. Maybe wrap it in a piece of paper and throw it in the garbage. You don't have to put it in shemus, but there's respect and disrespect. The chicken bones, you just grab, you throw it in. The crumbs, put it nicely and then put it in the garbage, whatever it is. Seir shalafunim, we're talking about pea pods. Mani Reb Shimoni. This is Reb Shimon. That before Shabbos, the pea pod was for human consumption, right? You don't view the exterior of the peas differently than the peas themselves. It's one human food. Once you open it up and you grab all your peas out and you eat the peas, what are you left with? You're left with the garbage. Oh, so just changed categories. It went from human consumption to animal consumption. What is that called? Noilad. According to Reb Shimon, it's not a problem. According to Reb Yehuda, it is a problem. Mani Reb Shimoni, the Leslie Muktzah. Again, when we say that Reb Shimon doesn't hold of muktza, it doesn't mean he doesn't hold of muktza. Of course, everybody holds of muktza. He's more lenient when it comes to muktza, and when it comes to this kind of noilad, he says there's no noilad like here. Ema seifa sfaig. So we have a problem. When it comes to peapods, we're saying that it's Reb Shimon. So the Gemara's question is going to be, how could the Mishnah hold like two different Tanaim? How can we start off talking like Reb Shimon and then go back to Reb Yehuda? That doesn't make sense. If a sponge has a handle, I could use it, whatever the pshat is, with water, without water, lightly, not lightly, Rashi, Ravid, whatever you want to call it. Vimlav ein mekanchem boy. And if it doesn't have a handle, you cannot use it. Asan Reb Yehuda. That lachari goes like Reb Yehuda, not like Reb Shimon. Damar dav shem miskaven also. The classic machlokes between Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda, I believe, was like the first machlokes we mentioned in the Masechta between them. Dragging a bench on Shabbos. You're going to drag a bench. You don't intend to make any kind of groove in the ground, but it's possible. It's not 100%. It's not a psik ratio. It's not 100%. But there's a nice likelihood you're going to make some sort of groove, and groove is asur. Nevertheless, Reb Shimon holds it's mutter. Yehuda holds it's asur. Davar she'einu miskaven. I don't have intent. You're not chayev. So, and over here, Reb Yehuda holds davar she'einu miskaven asur. So that's why I can't use a sponge. Because if I use the sponge and I try to clean a surface, I might squeeze it and water might come out. So what's the Gemara's answer? We had this answer 6 times already. This is the 7th time. I believe this might be the line, the most common line in the entire Masechta. I don't know for a fact. I didn't do any research, but to me it just seems like over and over. Everybody agrees. This is the 7th time mentioned. If I chop an animal's head off, I can't say to myself, oh, I didn't mean for it to die. All I wanted is his nice head. Obviously, if you're going to cut his head off, he's going to die. If you're going to use a sponge on Shabbos, you know what's going to happen? 100% water is going to come out of it. If you're going to put that down on the surface and start cleaning a table, it's not 99, it's 100%. So you can't play games here and say, oh, I didn't mean. It doesn't matter if you didn't mean to squeeze it. Since it's going to squeeze, you are chayav. Even Reb Shimon that holds davar she'einu miskaven potter. Over here, it's not davar she'einu miskaven. This is called a psik ratio. It's 100% going to happen. Hani garinen the tamri armiyasa. So we're talking about noilad, not noilad. You have different types of dates. You have the armiyasa, inferior dates. You open them up, half the date sticks to the pit. Not good stuff. Not the majul, they call it majul, these expensive dates. I told you guys you have to try them out. Even I never liked dates, and on Rosh Hashanah, the worst part of Rosh Hashanah was eating the date. It was worse than eating the fish. Now I enjoy dates. It's geschmack stuff, if you know about the majul stuff. So, armiyasa is no good. Armiyasa, you don't buy armiyasa. It's not even good for a shake. So what is that? That's animal food. Now in those days they would give the pits of the date, they would give it to the animals. They also used it for fire, we saw a few times, for fuel. So therefore, sharat al tulinu, because nothing changed over here. You got the pit, but the pit didn't change categories. It didn't go from human consumption to animal consumption. It was animal consumption from the first second it was created. It goes, it's no better, it's no worse than its own mother, the date itself, the fruit itself, because the fruit is for animals, the pit is for animals. I think even to today, I just realized this. Parsi, yeah, Iran, where do all these dates come from? They come from Iran. The good ones, I think, come from Iran. So, these Parsi dates, which are really good, so you have 2 parts to it. You have the exterior, so it goes from human consumption. Once you get to the pit, now you have animal consumption, muktza. Interesting, the Gemara goes into halarichas here, all the way to the end of the parak. The same exact thing. Shmuel metatalu agav rifta. How did Shmuel get his pit from his table to the garbage can? He basically would spit it out on a piece of bread. And then he did the trick. my bread is not muktza, my bread is a piece of bread. I'm going to use it soon I might not use it right now as is. It's a kind of a little bit interesting because it has a dirty pit on it. So Rashi says I might use it in some food. And then I take my piece of bread to the garbage can and flip it over into the garbage can. Agar Rifta. The Rishonim discuss, why doesn't this piece of bread become a basis? Because since right now it's a temporary thing, it's only on my piece of bread for a few moments until I get to the garbage can, it doesn't remain a basis l'dava aser. Interesting chiddush here. Shmuel Tamed, Shmuel Oisa Adam Kol Tzorkei B'Pas. We already had this. You could lift something up, I think it was, with a piece of bread. You could do, as long as you don't destroy the bread, you don't treat it with disrespect, you can do all sorts of malachas with your piece of bread, including going to the garbage can. Rabba, metaltalu agav, lakana demaya. You take some, like a negelvasser thing, like a nice sefel, how do you say it in English? Like not a pail. Pail would be too big, I think. According to Rabbi, it seems like some nice jug, water jug. He spit it into the water jug, got it to the garbage can. Oh, you know these guys, I don't know if you've ever been to Shalom Zachar, they're sitting there with the pitzuchim and they pile up this giant pile of it's a graf sharei. You're making like a toilet bowl right in front of your seat. And then he said, I have a toilet bowl here, I have to get rid of it, I'm allowed to get rid of it. Says the Gemara, what, you're allowed to create a situation where you have to move it? He's putting pit after pit until he gets grossed out from himself. That should be a problem. Says the Gemara, Rav Sheshes. And by the way, all these are brought down here in Tosfos, that if you look at Tosfos, Shmuel Matadu Agarifta, that Tosfos says that they were machmer on themselves to do it like this because they were chashuv people like we had earlier. Abai and Ravo, they were chashuv, they want to make an example to show that you don't just take muktza, etc. Rav Sheshes Zarek Lu Bilishane, he'd spit it out like he spit out like a, I don't know what, like a watermelon pit. You just toss it. Rav Papa Zarek Lu Achari Hamita, also he'd spit it behind his bed. Erev Pesach, his wife comes to clean and Hashem Yirachem. Papa, what's going on here? Amar Allah Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulos. You could look in somebody sent me a Chsam Sofer in Gittin, Daf Nun Vav, I believe it is, a Chsam Sofer who says this Zechariah ben Avkulos has to do with the Yana D'Yomar on Tisha B'Av. He was present by the famous Suda of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, and he made a macha, a whole thing, and he says he had a lot of patience, and therefore over here he had patience. If I understood it correctly, Ayin Sham in the Chsam Sofer. So Rabbi Zechariah ben
Avkulos, he was the one who made the decision not to bring the korban with the mum.
That's who he was. How do you know about this? Avi, Pshi. Ambasanusa, that's right. Thank you. Ambasanusa to this. We have all these gdolim over here, all these choshev guys. What?
We have a new guy on from London, Simon Cohen.
Simon Cohen is from Renana, no? Yeah. I didn't. You broke up. You brought a friend. What's his name?
Avrami Freila from London.
Avrami Freila from London. Shalom Aleichem. I just hope I remember to be Messiah this perek, unlike last time that you cut me off as we turned the page and we skipped the line. So let's be Messiah together. Let's make sure we do this. Shalom Aleichem, guest from London. Amru Allah Zechariah ben Avkulos. Show you machzer panav achari amita v'zarka, and you toss it behind his bed. Hadron Allah chnoitel adam es benoi. Hadron Allah chnoitel adam es benoi. Hadron Allah chnoitel adam es benoi. Again, this might be one of the shortest prakim in Shas. 1.5 daf perek. Don't get too excited that we just did a scene on a perek. Next perek, the 22nd perek in Masechta Shabbos. Daf Kuf Mem Gimel. Who would believe? Unbelievable. We just started the new perek and we turned the daf, sponsored by our new, listen to this, Shia Greenfield from Green Star Electrical Contracting. This is going to be a tough one. By the time the month is over, I'm going to get it straight. So Yishkoyach Reb Shia, beautiful contribution to the shir. And he says he doesn't know the difference. He never heard of a difference. He doesn't know the difference. Turning the page, turning the daf, turning the omid. He doesn't care. He just wants to sponsor. So Yishkoyach. Chavish Nishbro. Shem Yirachem. What happened? We have to get to like 10 lines from the bottom. That's our goal in 10 minutes. Can we do it? I don't know. So we had this already. There's a fire. Over here you have, and we spoke about this Mishnah. We're already at the end of the Masechta, so we had most of the stuff already. Throughout the Masechta, we brought all these Mishnayos and everything else. You have a barrel that broke. What kind of break? A nasty one. Because, as Taisa says back there in the Masechta, if it's slow, we're not concerned that somebody's going to do something crazy and go out of his way and bring through Rosh Hashanah. So it's a bad one. And we don't want him to go crazy and start bringing many kalim, so we limit him. And we say, there's only 3. And this is all based on what we learned already. What if it's one kli? You could save as much as you want. The concern is when you do many kalim. Now, shalish sudos, we learned this also, is only in the beginning of Shabbos, when you have 3 meals left. But what if you're already in the morning and you only have 2 sudos left? You could only save 2 sudos worth. So this mazin shalish sudos depends what time in Shabbos. And he could tell other people, come help me out. And they all grab 3 sudos of bavachal yispike. Don't use a sponge. Because you use a sponge, you're going to come to do schita. So now we're going to have a whole sugya about making juice on Shabbos. What's the issur to squeeze something on Shabbos? Mefarek, udash. This is part of dash, to separate the shaft from the wheat. You're separating the juice from the pre. What if the juices came out by themselves? Asurim. It's a gzeira. You might come to use other juices. You say, here's juice, apple juice. Well, okay, I'm just throwing it out because you're going to have to see the whole sugya, what kind of juice. But here's juice in a cup. If I could drink it, then tomorrow or next Shabbos, I'm going to forget. I'm going to take some grapes and start squeezing them. Gzeira, no juices on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im lachlin. If you set it aside, designated these foods, and we're going to see what foods, for food. These fruits only to eat, not to squeeze. Hayotzim em mutar. So I don't have the gzeira, I don't want the juices, and therefore it's okay to drink the juices. But if I set it aside for juice, hayotzim em asor, then I have to make a gzeira, maybe you'll come to squeeze it out. Chalois dvash. Chalois dvash. These are a honeycomb. Sheriskon. You started scraping it down, breaking it. Now what happens when you break it, like in this picture, you take some sort of tool, you break it, then it starts oozing out by itself. You have to break the top layer, I guess. If you did a Erev Shabbos, if Yotzim Atzim, it came out by himself. Asurim. Why is it asur? Because I might not realize that I did this Erev Shabbos, and that's why it's mutter. I'll do it on Shabbos. I'll start breaking more of these honeycombs. Rabbi Lezer Matir, he says, no concern. I did it before Shabbos. Why should I start making zeros? Says the Gemara, Don't put a sponge on top of wine to absorb the wine, because you might come to squeeze it. This is kind of interesting. In those days, everything went. They were very into oil, pouring oil over the body. We had yesterday, the guy pours oil in his body, starts rolling himself on a tablecloth. Hashem Yirachem. Anyway, he takes his hand, puts his hand in oil, then he takes the hand with the oil and starts going like this on a kli, back and forth, mamish geschmack, rubbing the oil, scraping the oil into a kli. Don't do that. I would say don't do it for other reasons, but okay. This is what you do in the weekday. You don't have other care. You do it with your hand. You put your hand and you start scraping. Not a good idea to do on Shabbos. Your fruit scatters everywhere. Melakit al yad. You take one at a time. That's it. However, but you cannot take a whole basket and start gathering. That's what they do in the weekday. You take a basket, you go to a tree, you take from here, you take from there. That's a weekday kind of melacha. You shouldn't do it on Shabbos. Let me ask you a question. What if all the fruit is in one spot? Could you do it? Could you use a basket? Eli Dykman says yes, because Eli Dykman listened very carefully to the shir last night. And the shir last night I told the Olam, remember this halacha, because I was very disposed from the Ran. And the reason I didn't do it in the morning, because I didn't know the Ran yesterday in the morning. Sorry. But the Ran says, you could be medayik from the sugi yesterday when the Gemara asked a question. If you have a rock, you have a stone together with the fruit, why don't you just empty out your whole basket and take the stone out? Says the Ram beautifully. And what are you going to do after you take the stone out? You're going to put the fruit right back into the basket and walk away. So you see, you could put fruit in a basket. So the difference is because over there you put it nicely in one pile and then you put it back in the basket. That's not uvdin dechal. Over here we're talking about scattered everywhere. Beautiful chap. So now we're going to get into different categories. We're going to make a little bit of a salat in our brains, and we're going to come back and put it all together and have something lemaisadik. Says the Gemara that Rabbi Yehuda admits when it comes to olives and grapes. In those days, that was pretty much all they used to squeeze. We'll see, there might be one or two other fruits. There's no such thing as apple juice, orange juice, all a new invention. They used to squeeze grapes and olives. So Rabbi Yehuda admits that if you put olives aside and you say, I want to eat them, I want to eat olive salad, I want to eat grape salad, and then they ooze, you're not allowed to use that juice. Because 90% of the world uses it for squeezing, so if they squeeze out, you're going to switch your mind. Right now, I say I want it for salad food. Oh, now you see a nice amount of juice. You switch. Okay, so it's awesome. Ula says no. Rabbi Yehuda argues even on olives and grapes. If the juice comes out, you're permitted to drink it, like other fruits. Rabbi Yochanan says no, Rabbi Yehuda didn't admit to anybody. Halachic Rabbi Yehuda b'shar peiros, that if you have apples and oranges and something oozes out of them, the juice oozes, you could drink it on Shabbos. We're not choshesh you're going to be soichet, because nobody in their right mind is going to make orange juice and apple juice on Shabbos in those days. In other words, he never admitted to anybody. He sticks to his guns that all fruit, including grapes and olives, the juices are mutter. We don't pass like Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yochanan when it comes to olives and grapes. That it's asur. Listen what's going on here. Rabbi Yehuda admits to Chachamim that olives and grapes are asur to drink the juice, and Chachamim admit to Rabbi Yehuda that apples and oranges is mutter. So where's the machlokes? They all admit to each other everything. Everything's perfect. So where's the machlokes? He asked Rabbi, where's the machlokes? Go figure it out yourself. Go learn through the sugya, and if you learn it well, you'll understand yourself. I'm not going to tell you. Or we have to figure it out for him. Two new fruits called tutim v'rimonim, pomegranates and strawberries, or berries. Let's just call it berries, but Yoni did strawberries. I did it in color. But a berry sounds geschmack. Tutim v'rimonim are different than other fruits. Why? Because there's some crazy people that use, happens to be, by the way, if you haven't ever tried it, here in Israel, they're big into pomegranate juice. Very highly recommended, especially if you do a mixture of orange juice and pomegranate juice. Very highly on a Friday afternoon when it's nice and hot outside, and he puts ice in it. English shower, very highly recommended. When you come to a trip to Ramat Bet Shemesh, I'll show you. Agobanim, in those days it wasn't so popular, but there were people that did it. Couple mishugayim. So that's where the machlokes is. Do we say that tutim v'rimonim are like shar fruit, or tutim v'rimonim are like olives and grapes? Moshe says Rashi, machlokes are showing what Moshe means. Rashi says it oozed out by itself. And the grapes that just the wine came out by themselves, the grape juice. So it doesn't matter why you put those grapes aside, even if you put them to eat them by the Shabbos meal for dessert, if they ooze liquid, it's asur. Okay. Tutim, but berries, that some liquids came out, and you put it on the side just for food. You want to have strawberries and cream. That's okay. You're allowed to drink that. But if I set it aside to squeeze them, then today you have Snapple, you have all these companies, you have strawberry. People are making juices all day long. We'll see in a second. asur. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. V'chachamim oimrim bein lachem bein lemashkim eitzim asur. So basically, we have a machlokes when it comes to strawberries or berries and pomegranate. Is it similar to the olives or similar to other fruits? Now, what do we have here? Bottom line like this. When it comes to olives and grapes, and you set it aside even for food, and it oozes liquid, it's asur to drink on Shabbos. When it comes to strawberries and pomegranates, if it's set aside for food and it oozes liquid, you're allowed to drink it. Now what about other fruits? Other fruits, the Gemara says, there's no schita. You're allowed to actually go like this on Shabbos, squeeze it out, because nobody ever drinks this stuff. However, the Ramah says, if the minhag is to squeeze the fruit, and our minhag is Tropicana or New Square, which is a shtickle similar to Tropicana, or pomegranate and apple juice and every other juice in the world, so that's the minhag. If that's the minhag, then so the Ramah says like this: if you squeeze it to quench your thirst and for geschmack, then if they ooze by themselves, it's asur. Then they have the same exact halacha as grapes and olives. And one more interesting thing, the Magen Avram says that it doesn't have to be a minhag in the entire world. The Magen Avram says even if it's a minhag in one city somewhere, that becomes the minhag for the whole world. Then it becomes juice. It's a fruit that becomes squeezable for juice, and therefore it's like a grape. And I just want to point out, because I brought this halacha down, this Magen Avram, a long time ago, 2-3 months ago, let's say. And it was just a very cool thing, because he in the sugya of Anshe Hutzel, when they used to carry things on their head, and the Gemara over there says, who cares about them? They're the Yechidim, nobody in the right mind does it. So we had a kash from this sugya right here, this daf, Kuf Mem Gimel Amid Beis. But if the Magen Avram says that if one person, one city in the world squeezes walnuts and makes walnut juice, then the whole world has to suffer because that's considered walnut juice. And the answer is because everybody in the world has a head. And nobody uses their head to carry things. So those Anshe Hutzel are crazy. But not everybody has walnuts to squeeze, and therefore if you have one place in the world that has walnuts and they squeeze it, then it becomes a minhag for the whole world. Have a beautiful, wonderful day. Shemalis mamam kim v'sicha Adonai. Adonai shema b'kadi dina zon l'kod Adonai. Evanu is the shmo Adonai miya moed. Chas l'chol l'man devoed. V'zad mikso nafshi v'loy l'cholki. Shem Adonai mishkurim l'boiker. V'chei Yisrael Adonai zimne v'nekazim. Amen. How's everybody doing, Rabbi Isai? Shkoyach. Simon, where's your friend? I don't see him. Who is he?
Avrami, just as Avrami.
Avrami.
Binyamin Freilach's brother.
Binyamin Freilach. Okay, yeah. We miss Binyamin, but I still have a lot. I'm in contact with Binyamin. Very nice.
He's a world famous as well.
Huh?
A world famous
Chazan, really? Wow. Listen.
You know you're seeing Michael Cohen. I just texted him.
Yeah. Where is he?
I don't know. I just texted him. He's been on a while.
Huh. Reb Shia Greenfield, I just want to say shkoyach. Thank you for the sponsorship. You're shkoyach.
Yeah, it's too hard for you to mention my name and my company. Just my name, that's it.
No, I'll get used to it. Fisher from official catering. Why do you have to? The shaila is why do you? Your name is Greenfield. It should be Greenfield Contracting. You went to Green Star, so you got to do Shea Greenfield from Green Star. Kitzer. Oh, that's what you should do. Where? 1 minute. Where are you out of again? You're New York, no? Beautiful.